Howdy, this is Rob, and you are watching a video that I have made to explain some of the reasons that Tom and I produced this website. And you've probably already heard from the news about a rebellion going on in Egypt right now. And you may have even heard about some other things going on, food riots in a number of other countries in Africa and Asia. And what's happening worldwide is that food prices are rising dramatically. Food prices are rising even here. We don't notice it quite as much as in countries like Egypt and India and China. One big difference between the United States and Egypt, for example, is that in the United States, the food bill is about 12.4% of the entire family budget. In countries like Egypt, it's more like 50% or so. Another big difference is that we pay in US dollars, and the US dollar still has reserve currency status, which means that our buying power is relatively greater. Nevertheless, a lot of people have noticed the rising food prices, and they're beginning to wonder, should I be doing something about this? Maybe I should grow some backyard crops. And if you are really serious about saving money, growing some of your own food in your backyard or your homestead or your small farm, then you might want to think about what kind of crops to grow. The first thing that occurs to most people is to grow relatively expensive ones, and they think that that way they'll save the most money. It turns out that there's a reason that some crops are relatively more expensive in the supermarkets than other crops, and frequently one of the big reasons is that somehow somebody else has to figure out how to get highly perishable crops like lettuce and green beans and zucchini to the store fresh through a long period, frequently all year nowadays. And that costs them some money, so they pass it along to you. When you grow those crops yourself, you will find the same kind of issues. Even if you think of doing something like staggering some of the planting dates, you will still find it very difficult to have, for example, lettuce out of season because it just doesn't keep, and eventually it bolts. So there's a reason that those crops are more expensive, and if you try to, for instance, can green beans or freeze them, what you're going to find is that costs money too. So you're actually not saving any money. It's actually probably costing you more. It would actually make more sense to let the grocery store worry about how to get those to you fresh and out of season. And you might consider growing some things that are relatively easy to store, relatively more productive, relatively more food value. One crop you might want to start with is, for example, potatoes. They're easy to grow relatively. They have about the highest productivity of any crop that you're going to grow in a temperate climate in most climates. The food value is relatively high. In fact, you could eat every zucchini off of multiple plants in your backyard, and it would not give you the food value of one potato. Think about it. A zucchini is largely water, air, and fiber. There aren't a lot of calories to burn up as fuel. There are some vitamins going on, but not very much. Tiny amount of C, a little bit of vitamin A. I think you're actually burning more calories eating the zucchini than you actually get out of it. So all the way around, the potato is the winner. They're easy to harvest. You just dig them. So it's not like wheat. You don't have to thresh it. You don't have to figure out how to grind it down into flour. So potatoes are a good crop to start with. Another good crop to start with, for example, would be squash. A lot of people say, well, now wait a minute, squash are these big sprawling vines. It takes up a lot of space. Yes, that can be true. It's not always true. Some squashes grow on bush-type plants. But even to the extent that it's true, and it is to a certain degree, there's a reason for it. You get what you pay for, and when you have this fairly large sprawling plant, it can concentrate a lot of food value into that. And obviously, I'm talking about winter squashes, into a fairly good-sized chunk of fairly high-quality food that you can let them cure for a week or so, and then put them on a shelf, and that's it. They just self-store. So squashes are actually a pretty good food value as well. You might want to try. Probably already grow things like tomatoes. The nice thing about a tomato is that although they don't self-store, you can usually use them in really large quantities. You can put the rest in jars. Tomatoes are just really easy to use in large quantities, and that's one reason they're already so popular. So those are some things to think about, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. The next time I post a video, I would like to talk about some of the things that Tom and I discovered when we tried to put this company together. And one of the reasons we're growing out a lot of stuff ourselves instead of just buying it on the markets is because we had to, and that's a very interesting story in that. So I look forward to telling you next time, and thank you very much for watching.